All right, so Tennessee is officially moving on from quarterback Nico Iamaleava, and Nico is officially entering the transfer portal after Nico had contract negotiations with Tennessee over the past 2 days and skipped practice yesterday, which was the ultimate tipping point for the Tennessee program. And they decided that it was in that moment that they were going to move on from him because it sets a precedent. Regardless of what's going on with the situation with the team, you don't skip practice. And so Tennessee stood on business and said, you don't skip practice in our program, you're out. No exceptions made. I really value that. Nico wanted to be paid in the area of $4 million a year in the next NIL deal that he was trying to negotiate with Tennessee. But obviously, that won't be coming into fruition now, as he will be seeking a new team to play for the 2025 season. Tennessee put their foot down because when you assess Nico's performance last year, yes, it was his freshman year, so you have to give him grace. But there's a high expectation. There's a precedent. He was a 5-star and being compensated a lot for it. And look at the stats. He only completed 63.8% of his passes last year, which is not particularly great. He had 19 touchdowns and 5 interceptions, which, again, it's middle of the pack. It's nothing worth paying somebody $4 million a year for, especially somebody who only has 1 year invested in the program. So Tennessee assessed the whole picture there, and they said, yeah, no way, we're not caving to you. This decision, this is major for college football because it sets a precedent. At some point in time, there is going to be an inflection point where you see that the brand has more influence than the player. It's still the same system. You enter a program, you build your personal brand there through the program's brands, and then you use that to get drafted by an NFL team. And as the NIL and transfer age continues to develop, that's what it's going to be, is the orange T, the script A, the maize M. That's going to be at the center point of branding for these players. That's what they're going to use to market themselves. You know, if this was somebody like a Bryce Young or a Trevor Lawrence who was trying to use their bargaining power to get a higher deal, that would have been a different conversation. Because, you know, those are Heisman Trophy winners. Those are national champions. Nico had 1 year with Tennessee, and it was good. It was decent. He did what he needed to do to get Tennessee to the CFP. But that's just it. He did what he needed to do. There was nothing exemplary about it. It was just perfectly average. Tennessee and Josh Heupel have worked tirelessly to build a winning culture at Tennessee that's going to sustain the program for years. There's a standard that's set there. And what I mean when I say that is, number one, no exceptions get made for anybody. If you're Tennessee and you make that exception for Nico, you let him skip practice and sit back and negotiate his new NIL deal with the Volunteers, then other players are going to want to do that. And your culture just spirals out of control. Number two, Tennessee is a culture of integrity. This has been one of the most ascending programs in college football the past several years. They don't want to lose momentum. You do something like this, you cave to Nico. Honestly, if you're Tennessee, it makes you look a little bit weak because you're letting a 19-year-old take advantage of a program that's been around since before my grandparents were born and is one of the most reputable brands in college football. At some point, you have to put your foot down and make a statement. And that's exactly what Tennessee did, not only for its program, but for the game of college football. Like we've all been saying since NIL was instituted. There were not enough guardrails. And I know it sounds cliche, but this is the tipping point. This is like the Battle of Saratoga of the college football NIL age here, because up until this point, it was looking like players had more leverage than anybody. They always get what they want. They were using their leverage, and teams were caving to players' needs in almost each and every situation. This is the first time that I've seen a program step up and say, no, we are not caving to what you're asking for. We are Tennessee football. We are not paying you $4 million a year. Goodbye. Go play somewhere else. And I know it sounds harsh, but you know what? This is a game that we love. Now, I'm getting a little passionate here, but I've been watching it go down this path for the past several years, and I'm a huge supporter of NIL and the transfer portal. I think in the long run, it's going to be very beneficial for our game. But we had to get to this point that took place this morning, to where he said, okay, teams have got to stand on business and make a statement and show that they still have leverage, that they still have bargaining power. And I think that because of the decision that Tennessee made this morning, we're going to start to see that balance of power shift more towards the teams, the brands, the programs. And it's like a pendulum. It was on the side of the players. Now it's going to start to swing more to the side of the teams, and then it'll be right perfectly in the middle. And when you're in the middle, that's the sweet spot. That's when everything is balanced. That's where we want to be. Power balance between teams and players. When you unveil something like NIL and the transfer portal, without any test runs, without any evaluation beforehand, you just insert it, plug and chug, and say, all right, we're going to adapt to this thing as we go. Undoubtedly, there's going to be kinks. There's going to be crazy shit that goes on. But after a while, the league is going to self-regulate itself. And that's exactly what we're seeing now at this point. So that's what it means for college football overall. Power is going to start to shift more towards the teams, and then we're going to get to that sweet spot in the middle where everybody's benefiting. Huge for Tennessee. Huge move. And now, granted, there is a quote-unquote downside for Tennessee, as they only have 2 quarterbacks on scholarship right now. They've got Jake Merklinger and George McIntyre. George McIntyre is a freshman. Jake Merklinger is a redshirt freshman, but Merklinger has more experience in high school than most guys out there. So, in theory, Tennessee may be able to make it work with him, but it's more likely than not that they'll be shopping for a new quarterback when the spring transfer portal window opens up here in a few weeks. And Nico's going to have to find a new home too. Or that will be, I have no idea, but we'll be covering that right here on the Era, so stay posted. I will keep y'all updated on that. Tennessee knows that they've built an incredible culture, and they're not going to potentially sacrifice it to appease one individual, because caving to Nico's wants in the situation could very well halt the progress of Tennessee's culture that they've made these past several years. They've been so intentionally about crafting. You don't want to see them take a step back in this situation. And I know that I passionately made my thoughts heard and known about the evolution of NIL and the transfer portal over the past several years. But I also want to make it clear that I'm not shaming Nico for his approach in the situation here, because negotiating is going to look a lot different after revenue sharing is introduced and implemented on July 1st. And so Nico knew that he had a window of opportunity to bargain with Tennessee here and potentially get a higher deal before the nature of negotiation, how much players can get paid, changes after revenue sharing. So this is a unique point in time for Nico. He wanted to capitalize on it. Unfortunately, it fell through for him and for Tennessee, and they're going their separate ways. But Nico is a very talented individual with a high ceiling, and I'm sure that he's going to excel with another program. But after that went down these past 2 days, the relationship between him and Tennessee was never going to be the same. So it was in the best interest of both parties to mutually go their separate ways. This is a fascinating story and a huge monumental point in time for college football in this new transfer portal and NIL era. And that's exactly what we're here to do on The Era, is cover this era. That's why it's called The Era, as it continues to form and take shape. So let me know what y'all think about this situation in the comment section below. Have a great day.